Hello, everybody, and welcome to the lucky number seven More Than Human Conversation. I am here with the Everyman's booktuber, the gateway drug to Stephen King himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Mike from Mike's Book Reviews.
Wow, thank you. What an intro. I don't know what to say. Thanks so much. Everyman. I like that. It's pretty good.
Yeah, well, and like I think we all start off watching BookTube, and you go into the Daniel Greens and the Murphys and everything. And then I think, as you kind of you're like, oh, well, I want to kind of find out what I really like, in the BookTube space. And then, when you were like the next, channel I found after I, got off of the two main people. And I was like, this is the Everyman. This is like, I kind of see myself in you a little bit, drinking the coffee, the addiction to the mugs, gotta have all the, all the fancy mugs.
No, I get it. Oh, that's nice. With me, as I said from the beginning, I was never going to be, one of those channels that does all the crazy graphics and transitions and skits and comedy and all that. That's just basically, I came up as a podcaster and just said, I'm just going to kind of transition that to video. I am what I am. Fixed camera angle, boom, is what I'm going to do. Same thing I'd be talking about if I was doing audio only. So, yeah, I'm glad that it resonated with some folks.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, as your growth has continued, I think everybody in the BookTube space kind of got hit with the algorithm thing, and it's kind of, I know you've talked about how it kind of slowed down a little bit, and but I don't know. I think it's just them messing with it. Eventually, it'll kind of come back to the way it was.
It seems to be. I've always tell people when they're first getting started, they'll get real excited. They start seeing some growth, and then it stops, and it comes back, and it's like peaks and valleys always. The whole time I've been doing this. With me, I think the only good thing to come out of the virus that shall not be named is everybody was home. And that was right when I first took off, so
Yeah.
more people were watching, I think. So you kind of get excited thinking, oh, this is just going to be the normal level of growth with your channel, but it's not. And it's just every year, Jan 1, they do something. They change things with their algorithm and everything just changes. It's so when everybody asks you, hey, is this anything you ever want to do for a career? Nah, you can't depend on this. It's way too volatile with the way they do things. But yeah, it's fun. I'm still having a good time with it.
Yeah. Well, and I remember like I got into watching because you became before all the things that shall not be named, right? You were
Right.
in there. Well, were you there about a year before that?
I started in April 2019, and yeah, I guess January 2020 is when it really became like a big thing. So yeah, I was there. I was still. I think that first year, at the end of the first year, because I lost a bet with my wife. I told her that I didn't think I'd hit 2,000 subscribers before the end of the year in 2019, and she said, "I'll tell you what, if I think you will." She said, "I think if you hit 2,000 subs before the end of the year, you have to take a dare." I said, "Sure," because I didn't think there was any chance. She said, "You have to read my Harlequin romance novels."
Oh yeah, I
did.
remember.
I lost that, and I never made a bet with my wife again.
Ever again. Oh my gosh. Well, I wanted to ask you some hard-hitting questions, such as, I guess we can start off with, did you grow up an Oilers fan or a Cowboys fan?
No, I lived in Atlanta until I was 15. I had family out here. So I always kind of, I have family out here. So I cheered for the Oilers and the Rockets and the Astros, whatever, but they weren't playing my teams at the time. Moved here when I was 15, tried doing the both thing. And that was right when the Oilers left. So it was like, whatever. Never followed the Titans when they left. Never got into the Cowboys because Cowboys fans are obnoxious. The ones that live here are obnoxious. But they're the Yankees fans of the NFL. Don't get me wrong. But it was more of hey, I've still got a football team that I followed from Atlanta. But when we got the Texans, I said, okay, I'll make the clean break. And I think I held on to being a Braves and an Astros fan until Chipper Jones retired. And I said, okay, it's time for me to make the break. And right when I did, the Astros were losing 100 plus games a year. So it was good timing on my behalf.
Yeah, you kind of exited just as the Astros were making their ascent. You're like, okay, Braves won like 15
Yeah, and
15
sure
divisions in
enough,
a
I was
row.
like, I made the clean break, and then the Braves beat the Astros in a World Series. Of course, it would happen that way. You know, that's life. Life as a sports fan is fun.
Yeah, because you were in Houston before they left,
When I
before the
got here,
Oilers.
was like the Astrodome was at like maybe 1,000 people in the stands because they knew that they were leaving. So yeah, they were on their way out. It was just they had to
So
play out the rest of the season. Yeah.
how long did it take you to transition into being a Texans fan?
Oh no! Once they got announced as they were getting a team here, I was like, okay, I'm on board, and I
Y'all,
jumped on board with them. Yeah, so I've been a long sufferer from day one. Yeah.
hey, now I'm a Bengals fan, so I lived through the dark age of the '90s.
You're reaping the benefits now.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys were the bane of my existence, the Andy Dalton years. Like,
You were the only team we could beat in the playoffs. Yeah.
2 years in a row. I'm like, we're doing it. We're there. And then it's like Titan. Oh God. Oh my God. The Texans.
JJ Watt pick 6. That turned that
Oh,
whole game around. I remember. Yeah.
God. You know what? I think people forget how good he was. God, he was the man. Like he was a tight. They put him in a tight end and they couldn't stop him on the goal line. Like just throw it up and this 300-pounder or just go nab it.
He was too good for this franchise. I'll tell you that. To waste his career here, it's a shame. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And and like I've been, of course, been following you for a long time. And recently I know you were talking about the Napoleon movie and how much you're a big history buff and whatnot. So I ask anybody who tells me that they're a big history buff. I gotta know, yes or no on the Bronze Age collapse and the Sea People.
Well, see, now here's the thing. History nuts, much different than history buff. I don't claim to know everything about everything, for sure. Like, I have no idea the answer to what you just asked me.
Okay.
But what I will say is I will soak up anything about like a history documentary. I'll soak up anything on that. But
because
no idea what you're talking about. My wife probably would. She's a history teacher, so she seems to know just about a little bit of everything. So
yeah, that's kind of where the Bronze Age collapse is kind of where the new ancient kind of everything changes and stuff. And me and Alan from Alexandria got in a big argument because he hates the Bronze Age.
Way more intelligent about history than I am.
He's all like, he's solidly like Roman Greek. Anything before that, he's like, no, we're not talking about that.
But that's Alan's style. Yeah.
Oh, and I don't know anybody else who is talking about this except for I've heard you talk about it recently. But why is From the best show on television right now?
Man, it's just been so long since something's made me theorize like that. It's so good. It's like, I was a big Lost fan. Like people talk about now, like, oh, no show has ever like had people theorizing like Game of Thrones. But that's just because social media wasn't huge during Lost. Like there were people like writing theses on Lost, trying to figure out what was going on. So I feel like there's been so many shows that have tried to copy Lost and they've just never been able to hit that formula right. And obviously they got 2 people that worked on Lost working on it. And, everyone's like, oh, so that means the ending's going to suck or they don't know what they're doing. And that's why they're addressed. They have said they have a beginning, middle, and end. It's really just going to depend on if MGM wants to keep them going that long. So apparently they have a 6-season plan. So I hope they let them do it.
6 seasons. Okay. Yeah. I had heard because me and my friend, we're addicted to From, and it like you said, it's got a little bit of everything in it. You got your portal fantasy, you got your horror, you got your sci-fi. We're trying to figure out, what it is, whether it's like, is it some kind of like fairy dimension? Is it a simulation?
I came up with the Fae with thinking about the villains too, because I was like, I don't think they're vampires. I came up with the Fae as well. So I don't know. I had so many years of this with Lost, but the thing is, like, I'm just now at the point where I got to wait.
Yeah.
Because I got to binge the first 2 seasons basically. So now I have to wait. So now is the time when I'll actually start really buckling down on like theorizing and stuff. But yeah, I'm excited. It's very good.
Yeah. I mean,
now I like that they've already deflected the purgatory thing. They've already found a way to say that, look, it's not purgatory. I know that's what everybody always wants to go to. They've already explained that one away. So Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
they got a real good plan.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to ruin it for everybody because everybody should go watch that show.
Yeah,
But
without a doubt.
yeah, but yeah, there is like it's been a long, like you said, it's been a long time since there's been a show where it's just you're asking questions and theorizing so hard every episode. You're like, okay, this is what it is, and then they give you a little bit more nugget, and you're like, okay, that kind of blows up that theory. Okay, now we gotta.
And then something comes out of nowhere. You're like, what in the world is going on? You know, so yeah, it's good stuff. Or is this a hallucination? What's going on? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god. And one of the ways that I really kind of latched onto your channel was through your Dresden reads. I don't know if I caught you right at the beginning, but I caught you pretty close as you were kind of going through the series, and that you reading the end of Changes on video was classic. I mean, that's one of my
that's
top
how Jim
5
Butcher.
things.
Yeah, that's how Jim Butcher found the channel. Is he saw that, and he had his publicist get in touch with me and say if I wanted to chat with him, like, gee, let me think. Yeah, I want to talk to Jim Butcher, sure. But yeah, he said that was incredibly satisfying watching that. So
Yeah, how was that sitting down with Jim Butcher after you've been like binging, Dresden?
anytime I get to talk to an author, especially a mega successful one, it's just a real moment for me because I think about like back in 2008 when I just like fell in love with First Law and thinking, man, I'd love to pick Joe Abercrombie's brain about this stuff. And then I got the opportunity to do that. That's just something I never thought I'd be able to do. So yeah, it was really surreal. But with Dresden Files, I think that was one of the things besides Wheel of Time, I think that really helped get me out there was like my Dresden stuff wasn't doing very much. And then out of nowhere, it was the Blood Rights one that I did. All of a sudden, boom, it like popped off. And then all my old ones started picking up. And so that's why I say the YouTube algorithm is just weird because it's funny because Blood Rights was probably the first one where I was like, I didn't really like it that much.
Yeah.
So it's weird that that's the one that really kind of took me off, as far as like growth goes. But yeah, it was a lot of fun doing those. But I don't think that's pretty much when I retired doing the spoiler discussions because Dresden Files fans they're tough. They're tough on you. I'll tell you. I'll say that much. I love them. I love them, but they're tough on you. If you get one tiny little thing wrong, they will make sure they let you know. And so I said that's when I thought I need to move away from the spoiler reviews because I don't know. I think that people were using me as like a recap, so they didn't have to reread before the new book came out.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if I left anything out there, but why do you talk about this, or this? I was like, because I'm not the cliff notes. I'm just talking about the things I really loved, doing it. But that was a fun ride doing that all within like 6 months. It really was.
Yeah, that was a Dresden. That's my main series. Over one of these shoulders is all Dresden memorabilia and stuff.
I see Bob back there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a generic Bob. I really need to step up my game on the Bob.
But when you put a regular skull next to a Dresden Files book, it becomes Bob.
It becomes Bob instantly. Yeah.
Like I got a little white wolf stuffed animal that my kids had, and I'm like, this isn't Ghost from Song of the Fire, but you know what? It is now.
Yeah, it is now.
It's next to the George R.R. Martin books. Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, that's one of the things I was watching your and like I've read Dresden multiple times years before I got into BookTube, but like when I got on here, I was like, oh, Dresden, all right, So I came along for the ride on that, and then that's been my main thing. But yeah, like you said, it's like Dresden fans will be like, well, this wasn't exactly that, or they want to
Harry didn't scratch his eyebrow. That was Thomas that scratched his eyebrow. I mean, they're like, Jesus,
or the theories. Like if you put out a theory in one of your videos, they'll find a way to tell you that theory's not.
I
love it.
I famously did not read the Side Stories book.
Oh,
and then I did a Peace Talks wish list video, and everyone's like, well, if you weren't an idiot and read the Side Stories, that's already been answered. And I said, okay, fair enough. So I said, no more of those videos.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and when I had Philip Chase and a bunch of other different people were on had followed, because we did our Dresden discussions like for a year. It was like, we started off with like 3 books, and then we did 2 books a month, and or every other month. And yeah, it was. I wasn't even going to do. I mean, I'd read the side jobs and working for Bigfoot and all that, but I wasn't gonna do a video on it. And then with JC and Burns like, hey, you wanna? And Chaz was like, hey, I just did this. Do you want to do a video on these? I was like, all right. Well, more dressing content, the better, right? But yeah, because you'll have people like, well, if you would have read the side stories, you would have known who this character was before you got into the book.
Foot and mouth on that one for me. That was my fault.
Yeah. The only one I ever tell people is like, you should try to get the Working for Bigfoot before you go into Skin Game.
I think what chased me off of it was everybody was like, you must read Aftermath, the short story, right after you finish Changes. It's like the post-credits scene for it. And it was whatever to me. So I think that kind of like chased me off. But I'm not, I mean, look, I love that universe. I love the characters. I love that. I mean, I've heard there's a POV story from Mouse's point of view. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
that's really good. Yeah.
And the thing is like, I'm missing Dresden Files big time because this is the first time I've had to wait, which always gets people triggered when I say that because they're like, "Oh, poor baby, you haven't had to wait yet. I've had to wait forever." And I'm like, "Well, I've been waiting. I've been reading Song of Ice and Fire since 2000, so I think we're even."
Years,
I need some Dresden, so I might probably dip into those sooner rather than later.
Have you? Well, I don't know if it's out. I don't know if it's on physical form yet. The Law.
Yeah, I did read The Law. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I did get a review copy of that, so I did read that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jim's got us all, antsy because he's got his little bar up on his website of he's like, last time I looked, he was like 20% or something like that through the next Dresden book. But yeah, he's got 2 other books coming out. He's got a book coming out this year and then a novella. I don't know if it's going to come out end of this year or early next year.
Spires.
Yeah.
Never done that one.
But yeah, I heard you talking about adaptations the other day, and I was thinking to myself, it's like, you're a marketing major, right?
Minor, but yeah,
yeah,
a little bit,
just a little bit, yeah, maybe. So, what do you think is happening with these adaptations? Where do you think that they're going wrong?
I mean, I think you look at the 2 big successes, Song of Ice and Fire, and regardless of what people think of Dan and Dave now, but Song of Ice and Fire and Lord of the Rings. Peter Jackson absolutely loved the books. Dan and Dave absolutely adored those books. And I think that's why they've been so successful, because they said, I want to make this and make it be something that I think that the author would have been proud of. I don't feel like that happens with a lot of these other ones who are like, hey, you've got a good resume. Why don't you do this Lord of the Rings thing that we paid a lot of money for? Why don't you do this Wheel of Time thing? They're not hiring the people who truly, and then you had the people like the ones in charge of Wheel of Time that claim to love it. And everyone's like, you sure you read this, bro? I mean, I think it's just, they're hiring the wrong people, and they're hiring people who, I got this a long time with Stephen King, is you feel like, screenwriters feel like, oh, well, I'm a better writer than Stephen King. You're not. So they'll do a screenplay of Stephen King and they'll think, oh, well, this is messed up and this is stupid, so I'll just change it and I'll make it better. And I think that's what you're getting with a lot of these adaptations is they think that, oh, well, this is the way that I think it should have been written, or this is the way it would be written if it was written today. And that's just, you're just, they think they got the fans in the palm of their hand, that they'll watch it no matter what. So they think, oh, it doesn't matter if we piss off that group. We're trying to get the casuals.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, usually that stuff's popular for a reason, because it's the way that people like the story, and they're just ripping the soul out of them. Like, I mean, you literally chased off an A-list actor from The Witcher because you refused to follow the book. That's incredible to me. What amazing hubris. So I think there's just so many egos involved, and they're just hiring the wrong people. They're not hiring people that love these IPs.
That punches me in the heart so bad with The Witcher, because of all the adaptations, movies, video games, books to movies and to TV shows. I feel like The Witcher had the most potential to be the best show ever made. You had the right guy in Henry Cavill. You even had, Dandelion Yasker. He was awesome, and you had a great story, because I think it could have even been better than Game of Thrones because you had one centralized character. People could latch on to him, and that guy loves the books. That guy loves the games. Like, this is what he's like. He fought to get that role. Like, he kept calling him. He's like, "Hey, I'm Geralt. Like, let me. He goes, I'm Henry Cavill. I'll read. I'm Superman, but I'll still read for it to tell you guys how much I want to do it." And then you just have these writers who, like you said, it's like we know better than Sapkowski. Who cares that he's sold 30 million books or whatever?
It was all secondhand, so you don't know how much truth there is to it or validity. But a lot of this stuff about saying like the writers like absolutely despise the source material. I'm like, why are you hiring these people to adapt it then? Oh, you're say they're going off the resume. And it's like you can do a bit of a resume, but also like look at Ryan Condal, who's doing House of the Dragon. He freaking loves those books. That was the right hire. And look how good the first season of that show was because he loves the books. This isn't hard to do. Get someone who loves it and knows that they're good at their job. I just don't understand why you're hiring the wrong people. I mean, this is just, as a business major, this is something hard for me to wrap my head around. Why do you attack the fans, and why are you hiring the wrong people for these? This is simple business. Give the people what they want. I don't get it.
And that is my biggest thing. I don't know what positive outcome they think they're going to get by telling the fans that you're wrong and you're bad people if you don't like the show. I'm like, where's the positive in that?
I don't know. I guess I'm still for the generation of, the buck stops here. If I made something and it didn't work out, you guys didn't like it. Hey, I swung and missed. That's my fault. Now it's, oh no, you're the problem. Wow. Okay. So like Lucasfilm was like the kings of this, like make a bad movie, attack everyone else. It's like, so have you guys ever done anything wrong? I don't know. Just the wrong people in charge.
Oh man, Star Wars. Star Wars. I was pretty sad. I was pretty sad about Star Wars when the new trilogy came out. I was like, that first movie. Not that the first movie was actually really bad. It was just like they're like, all right, we're killing off all the old characters, all the old actors. We're just killing them all, so we can do whatever we want to do. And it's like. And then I watched this. I was like, my best friend is one of those mega Star Wars. He can tell you about all the lightsaber forms and all this and stuff. And he was like, well, let's give the second movie a try. And I haven't even watched the last one. I was like, I can't do it. I'm not giving them any more money. Like,
people will say it was even worse, but it just Last Jedi completely broke that entire movie universe for me. So, no. The way that I always put it is getting Han, Luke, and Leia back together, not letting them share a scene together, was like reuniting the Beatles and making them record solo albums. What's the point? What a missed opportunity to do that. And I think that a lot of studios think that the way to pass the torch is that a character has to die to do the next generation now.
Yeah,
it's funny. People laugh when I say this until they watch it. They see what I mean. Cobra Kai, the television show, shows how you use your legacy characters and introduce new characters, and they can all have really good storylines. You don't have to have them there just to quit or to be deconstructed as angry old men. You don't have to do that. I think it's a way to pass. Picard season 3 did that incredibly well. It introduced the possibility of the next generation while not disrespecting those legacy characters. And it seems like now they just disrespect those legacy characters. What fan wants to see Luke Skywalker being an angry old man who has no hope and is sucking blue titty milk? Who wants to see this? And then to act surprised and say, "Oh, we didn't know Luke Skywalker was so popular." He's right up there with Superman. It's probably like the most popular, like iconic figure in pop culture. And you're telling me you didn't know people like Luke Skywalker? Wrong people in charge.
Yeah. Like, I know that Hamill was so mad. Like, I remember watching an interview. Like, he's actually started to come out. I don't know if he's out of his contract now or
he played good soldier for a bit, but yeah, he's quite
now he's just now. Like, I'm telling you guys what I think. Because I almost didn't do the movie because Luke wouldn't do this. This is not how he would act.
Well, he has that interview where he said he told Ryan Johnson, you got to think about the fans. Ryan Johnson said, no, you don't. And I was like, right there, I was like, ooh, the biggest red flag in the world went off. I was like, wait a second. Now, I kind of understand where it's saying, like, you don't want to let the fans, you don't want to let the internet, you don't want to let Reddit make your movie for you. I get that. But when you're just like intentionally being cruel just to make a divisive movie. It's like, why? When did this become like the new normal? We want to make a movie that's going to make people angry.
Yeah.
What? I want to make movies that make people want to pay to see them. That's me. But I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Different generation, I guess.
Well, and that's the way I feel about books. It's like I just want, like, if I'm listening or reading a book, I just want to escape. I want to get out of this. I want to get out of this reality. Take me for a few hours on a ride into, whether it's urban fantasy or epic fantasy or sci-fi. Like, just take me out of this world. I don't want to hear about any modern day politics. I don't. I don't need you throwing your modern day views into the book. I'm like, and as soon as that happens, I'm like, oh, why?
Yeah, I love a 14th century Europe medieval fantasy kind of style book, but we got to make sure that this evil king is like current day political figure, and it's like, why? I mean, yeah. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. Escapism is always the route I like.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's why I know everybody uses it, but like there's sometimes like they'll say I need a palate cleanser, and I'm just like, it depends on what your definition of a palate cleanser is, because I know people will say like, oh, Dresden's a palate cleanser. I'm like, once you get further in, and that's a sneaky thing about Dresden. It's like, yeah, it starts off as this low level, just detective. But by the time you're at, Deadbeat and everything, it's like you can't see the forest for the trees. You've just launched yourself into an epic urban fantasy, and you're just like,
I'm with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I said with I was reading Wheel of Time, but at the same time I was reading Dresden. It was like palate cleanser to me meant not a 900-page book, because you could read those really quick. Like it would take a couple weeks to read a Wheel of Time book, where it'd take a couple days to read a Dresden Files book.
Yeah,
palate cleanser is just switching up genres, doing a standalone or something like that, like a Blake Crouch book or something, or a Stephen King book. I think that's probably the best route for me to go, because there's like it's like finding a unicorn if you find a standalone of fantasy these days. So
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like I did, what was I doing? I was finishing up the Dark Tower. So I was at the Dark Tower, which is like 900 pages, or it's really long.
Yeah.
And then I did 3 Malazan books back to back.
Wow. Impressive. I couldn't do
that. No, don't ever do that. If you're watching this, that's not a good idea.
I see these people, like I talked to Kay from Kay's Hidden Shelf recently, and talking about how they were doing one Malazan book a month, and I was like, it's cute that you think you're going to do that. Like everyone that tries to do that never finishes it. So yeah,
I got I did. So I did that. Did those 3. Did the Dark Tower, those 3, and then I started the 4th, and I was just like, and maybe it was a little bit of a burnout because all those books are like 1,000 pages, but like also. Like, okay, so I was 3,000 pages into Malazan, and I didn't care about any of the characters. Like, any of them could have died, and I wouldn't have cared less, And I was like, man, really? Like, how many more thousands of pages do I have to go before somebody hooks me?
Like something different. I don't want to get too spoilery on Malazan here, but with Malazan is like there's events that happen where I feel like death is kind of meaningless. And so it was like, what do I care if anybody dies? I'll just see him again in 2 books, So that was kind of my thing. So I had characters I liked, but I no longer feared for them, and I think that that kind of did damage character growth a little bit for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I will say about like about like Jim Butcher is like, I don't want to ruin anything, but there's a character in one of the earlier books, and he's only in the book, I want to say it was book 5. And he was only in book 5 for a little bit. And like, I've never cried as an adult in a book.
I know you're talking about, yeah.
But I was just like, Jim, like, why do you do these things? And I'm just like, he can do that in 400 pages. And I'm like, I'm 3,000 pages into this series, and there's nobody that I would feel like that for,
Right. Yeah. It's I've said so many. People think I hate Malazan because I'm critical on these things. I'm just like, I enjoy the ambition and
Yeah,
what he was
the
trying to do. And
world.
there's nothing else that feels like this. But
Yeah.
yeah, that isn't what I would call one of the strengths for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I've always said anytime I talk about Malazan, like his writing, his prose are as good as anybody in the game. Like, you know, and the world is the most ambitious world I've ever seen. I mean,
No
this
doubt.
guy is like thinking like 200,000 year history and how it impacts today and stuff. I'm almost like, hats off. That's one of the most ambitious things I've ever seen.
Yeah, but if you're a character first guy like me, you're gonna struggle with some bits. I think so. Because there is so many characters. I mean, in every book, it's a bunch of. Here's about 30 new ones. Here you go. Yeah.
So I know you're doing your reread into the multiverse with like how far along are you now?
I am currently at Dreamcatcher.
Okay,
that's the 2000s now. Yeah,
into the 2000s. Have you read every Stephen King book?
I haven't. There was a breakup period with Stephen King. I was a waiter for The Dark Tower. You know, all these people that have binged it and they're like, I don't understand your problems with it. And like, yeah, wait 8-9 years between these books and see how you felt about book 6 and 7. Anyhow, so I was so mad about the way that he handled the last third of The Dark Tower. And I just was so frustrated. I was just like, maybe I've outgrown Stephen King. And I just walked away, and I didn't read anything for like 7 years.
Wow.
From him. I'm humongous researcher on the JFK assassination. So when 11/22/63 came out, I was like, every time I think I'm out, he pulls me back in. And I read that, and it was great. And so I got back on board. But there was time during there, like I just went back and read Lisey's story like a year or two ago before the Apple TV series came out. And I haven't read Blaze, I haven't read Joyland, just all kinds of stuff during that time period. I did not read that I'm going to, where I started doing this. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait and read it when I get to it on Into the Multiverse. Now,
are there any of his books that you started to read from that time period, aside from, 11/22/63?
I read the Bill Hodges books, the Bill Hodges trilogy, the Mr. Mercedes. And just Lisey's story. I think that's the only. I don't know. Under the Dome was before that. I think I don't know. I read Under the Dome, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure without the list of his releases right in front of me. But there is a stretch there where I didn't read anything from him.
Yeah, well, and like going through the Dark Tower, like I'd heard, I've watched, kind of watched your videos, and like kind of jumped out before they. Spoiled anything, but I was going through and I got to the end, and I actually didn't hate Song of Susanna like most, most people. But when we got to the Dark Tower, for being a 900-page book, it seemed rushed. Yeah. It seemed like he's like, all right, let's knit everything together as best we can. And it's weird. I am the outlier of outliers when it comes to the Dark Tower. I still love the Gunslinger the most. Like I especially on a reread. I just reread it last month, and I was just like, it's so good. And his action scenes, and I've read some of his other books. His action scenes are great, but he didn't really utilize that in the final book. I'm like, again, let's not spoil this for anybody, but there's certain characters that should have been an epic thing, and they were just over like that.
Well, I feel like I ruined this for some people because there were a lot of people that I'm friends with that recently did a read along on the Discord, and they finished it, and I'm like, oh, I thought 7 was really good, man. What'd you not like? And then I said, okay, well, this, and this, and they're all like, okay, yeah, no, that's true. And then they're finally like, maybe I didn't like it. So I was like, I'm not trying to ruin this for you. I'm just telling you, these are the things that just drove me crazy. And it isn't the actual ending. I get told, oh, Mike hated the ending. It's not the actual ending. It's stuff that happens in book 6 and 7. They're just like,
yeah,
really, okay, yeah,
yeah. There are some scenes where you're just like, these were supposed to be the scenes that the entire book were leading into.
I think,
and then he was just like,
he got spooked when he got hit by that car. He was like, I don't want to be the next Robert Jordan. That he wasn't going to finish a series, so he just rushed books 6 and 7 like that, and he just, I want to get him out. I feel like if he hadn't done that, we probably would have got the last book about 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
and it would
yeah,
have been much, much different, I think.
yeah. Because the last 3 books were really close together, compared to how he had been doing them.
Yeah. It's still a top 5 series for me all time. I mean, I still love it. I still love that content. All those characters are great. I just, I say that when they do Stephen King adaptation, I'm like, hey, don't change anything. That's the one where I'd be like, you can change a little bit in 6 and 7. I don't think that'll ever get made, though.
Yeah, I heard they're trying to do a show instead of
Mike Flanagan wants to, and I think he'd be the perfect person to do it. But I'll be surprised if it happens.
Oh man, yeah, because I still did you watch the movie?
I knew it was going to be terrible. I mean, I knew from the first moment it was going to be terrible, and so I didn't go see it or anything like that. But a friend of me, me and a friend, this is back pre-keto when I used to drink a lot more. Me and a friend were just killing like a 24-pack, and we said, let's put this on. We just laughed at the whole movie. We're like, this basically feels like, okay, the studio got the box set of the movies in their hand, and they read, or the books, and they read the back cover, and they said, okay, let's make a movie. That's what it felt like, because it was like there was stuff from like books 1, 2, 5, and 7, and there was like, what in the hell is this? So yeah, it was really, really weird. Awful cast. It was bad all the way around. Jake was pretty cool. That was about it. That was about the only good thing I could say about that movie.
Well, I try to tell people when it comes to like adaptations, it's like I think they should follow the 80-20 rule, right? Keep 80% of the stuff, and then yes, you have to change some things to make it palatable for television.
Sure,
and
I say that a lot. There's some things you have to do for television or the screen. You have to make it adaptable. But it's like, again, that whole thing of when you think that you can do it better, that's when adaptation falls apart. But with something like Dark Tower, maybe it would be better, because there's a certain character that King writes into the story in book 6. It's like, and it's like I just couldn't get back on board with it at that point.
Yeah.
Man, here what? Like for years, I'm waiting. You've been waiting because you get a flashback in book 4. So I've been waiting all these years for these characters to move on. 5, it's fine. I still kind of wish they'd made some progress towards the actual tower, but it was fine. And then 6 came out, and you know how that went for me, to the point to where I was in his book club, and we got access to book 7 like 2 months early, and I didn't even read it. I was so upset. I went into it like this and my arms crossed. So I thought maybe this reread I'll revisit, but here we doing. I was on that read along with them. I felt like I was spoiling everyone's fun, so I dropped out. So I still have to reread 6 and 7, but I just can't do it to myself right now. Yeah.
What's TO? I love me some me. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, this is a great idea.
See, Scott's with me. He thinks that, he was really enjoying it, but he says Song of Suzanne and Dark Tower was a struggle. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I remember when I first got on BookTube and I was trying to find, booktubers that I liked and that could, mesh with my, my reading. I would hear people say, oh, well, Stephen King's prose are just basic and
I hate
blue collar. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, have you not read The Dark Tower? Like,
all the time I tell people, I was like, read Different Seasons, the short story collection, and tell me that guy doesn't have a beautiful prose. You guys are out of your mind. You just think, it's the same people who think he only writes horror.
Yeah.
And they don't even understand that this guy does the best coming of age. He writes kids better than anyone else. He writes character development like no one else. Character relationships are just top notch. So I tell those people who love Robin Hobb, I'm like, I don't see how you can say you think Robin Hobb is an amazing writer, but Stephen King isn't. Because I'm like, I think they have similar styles, really. She's probably a little more, what's the word, purple, I guess you would say. She's a little more expressive with her prose than Stephen King is, where it's more like the comparison of how they do characters and the character relationships, I think, is really, really close. And to me, I think that's a great compliment to Robin Hobb fans. It really is.
Yeah.
I hate it when they say he's schlock and he can't write.
Yeah. Well, and I
hold my beer. I love it.
Oh yeah. Oh, so but and that's the thing. Like, I got introduced to Stephen King through The Dark Tower, That was my first reading. And then I was like, okay, I want to try some of his other stuff. So like, why not go back to the beginning? So I read Carrie, and I'm like, you could tell, like, I know he in interviews and stuff, he was like, he's not a super big fan of Carrie.
He trashes his early stuff, and I'm like, stop. Yeah.
I'm just like, I thought it was awesome. I love the whole thing he does in there where it's like he'll insert like news articles that were talking about the event previous. Yeah. I'm like, I love that kind of stuff. I think that is so cool.
You'd really like The Troop by Nick Cutter, I think, because it's the most I think Carrie style of a book I've read since, for sure. But the thing is, like, his second book was Salem's Lot, and that's like God tier. And I'm like, so okay, yeah, he can't write, but by his second book, he's writing an all timer. Okay, sure,
yeah. Well, and also another book, like, I know a lot of people don't hold it in high regard because there are some stuff, but like Cujo, I thought Cujo was pretty good because coming into it, I'm like, how interesting can somebody? I remember watching the movie when I was like 8.
Getting locked in the car. Like, yeah, how
like, how interesting can this be? But Stephen King does that thing, and I actually think he did it well in Cujo, where I don't think he does it at quite as well in The Dark Tower, where he just goes, I'm gonna go write another book inside this book, and then we'll come back.
Yeah,
you look over at a character, this isn't exactly what he does, but like this is the extreme version. Like, oh, he looks over and sees the cashier, and then he tells the entire cashier's life story in the book.
It's like, a friend one time I was like, so why don't you like reading Stephen King? He's like, I don't know, man. He's like, I was trying to read It, and he talked 15 pages about like the beads of sweat going down a milk glass, and then like the cow that the milk came from. Like, yeah, I get that. Okay.
Well, yeah, actually just bought It, so that's going to be a monster.
Will this be your first reading?
Yeah.
Oh, enjoy, man. That's great.
Yeah. So that's on the docket for next month. But yeah, I think that might be the biggest book I'll have ever read. I think the hardcover is like 1146.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a break from chonkers here in a minute, because all I've read, Lonesome Dove, Gone with the Wind, and the Ryan Cahill's of War and Ruin, all within like 2 months, and I'm like, I've got to calm down these huge books and affirm myself. That's why I'm going to read this now, because it's YA, so it's big font, double spaced and stuff. It's just, that's a palate cleanser. That's what you need after something that's 1,100 pages on hardcover.
Well, that's exactly what I did after I got through those 4 books. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna try and keep it under 600 pages. And that I did that almost for a year. I'm like, anytime I'd see a book that was really big, I was like, no. And that's the one thing I was worried about when I started reading Red Rising. And I know like Red Rising has taken over like my channel since the beginning of the year. And I know you're hardcore. But he started off with like a 400-page book or something like that. It was like the first book was like 400. Then he like creeped it a little bit. It was like 5, and I'm like, okay, that's good. And then the second, what Morning Star is like 750 or something like that.
Yeah, the new one's massive as well. So it's yeah, you can tell when you're an epic fantasy fan when you say a 600-page book is a short one. Yeah, so
yeah, and that's like, and I have now. Not everyone falls into this, but a lot. Like I call it the 700-page rule. Like once your book hits 700 pages, very few books that are above that length really needed to be that long. Sure. In my view. Now I just read the first 2 Song of Ice and Fire books. I agree. Yes, those books needed to be that long. He does so well on the POVs, like switching back and forth. I don't ever feel like jarred or I don't know where I'm at. Like George is really good at making each section, each POV seem very of its own, thing.
Yeah, when he does write, he's quite good at it. He's quite good at it.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard, that Patrick Rothfuss is an author, and I heard that he writes really good
when he chooses to do it. Yeah,
because both of their last books came out at the same year. It's like 12, 13 years ago.
I just got the Facebook memory came up the other day, 2 days ago. That has been 12 years. I always joke with my wife. I'm like, hey, you see our oldest son over there? He's this age. And it's like, yeah, when we read Dance with Dragons, he wasn't even conceived yet. He's going into the 6th grade, So, yeah, I see that's where I'm at with Caitlin there. Gone with the Wind, Lonesome Dove, It are books that some people will say is long. And I'm like, they could have been longer. And I think I would have been fine because you just grow to love some of those characters so much. You just want to spend more time with them. It's amazing that Gone with the Wind, 1,100 pages. And I feel like the ending is rushed, which is incredible, because you're just along for the ride. You're having a great time, as much as you can have a great time. It was something like that. I'm just saying that you're enjoying that world, spending time with those characters, and then it just ends, and you're like, what's the sequel? Oh, wait, yeah. So.
Yeah, well, and that's what I told Richard Kadri. I got to interview him. He's the Sandman Slim author, and he did a book. It's a standalone, at least at this point. It's called The Grand Dark. And it's one of the few books. Now, it's not a giant book, but it's one of the very few books, like even Dresden, like I love Dresden, but like I'm okay when it ends. I'm like, all right, oh, that's great. Awesome. Great. He always ends the books really crazy, so, but like with The Grand Dark, it was one of the only books where I'm just like, why are we ending? Let's just keep going. That's one of the things, and that's where the traditional publishing thing is kind of weird, because when I talked to him, he goes, I'm glad you love the book. He goes, but they're not going to let me make another one. And I'm like, what? I was like, can you self-publish? He goes, contracts, maybe.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about that talking to some self-pub guys. Like that interview I did with Ryan Cahill, I learned a lot in there, and talking with Michael J. Solomon, who does all his stuff independently now. That it's not easy, because I used to be like, oh, why would you self-publish if you can get a contract, and get paid and stuff like that. And I get it now.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a misconception that is still around, but not quite as prevalent as more, because I'm a self-published author too. And as more self-published authors get really big, like, Will White and the Cradle series, which, I don't know why you hate good things, but
I didn't hate it. I just knew it wasn't for me. It wasn't my style. But I mean, enough people love it that he must be doing something right. Yeah, he's been very
that was your reviews on that were magical. Like, I love, you're just like, he's like talking about just sitting in a prison cell for like 2 weeks, and he's just powering up.
No, it's like, hey, oh, cool, my friends are here to save me. Well, we would save you, but first you need to beat that little enemy over there and gain the next level. Like, what the?
What is this?
Yeah, so it's not my style of fantasy, but enough people love it. I mean, the White Army is amazing. I mean, they're huge. It's a massive group, and I still feel bad, that his fans bought me that entire set of books, and I was like,
you're like,
yeah, it's kind of just scoot those silently off.
Very slowly off to the side. Yeah, like. I started reviewing those, and those are probably the most hardcore fans that just want to eat up everything. Like in total, those are probably some of like my highest viewed videos. Like they love, Cradle, and I love Cradle too. And it's weird because I don't like anime. Like I kind of lost, and someone's like, well, try this. It's anime, but it doesn't have as much goofy stuff as actual anime has in it. And and it helps. And I tell this people, like, it helps that they're only like 350 pages.
Yeah,
because it's like, well, if I can suffer through 1,000-page Malazan book that I'm not overly interested in, I can make it through 3 of these books, and that's kind of what happened. Like it took me about 3 books, and then I was like, oh, okay, I get what we're doing.
Will White's a gentleman. He did see my review, and he did message me to tell me thank you for giving the books a try. So that was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, with a channel like yours, getting exposure, it really helps. I mean, especially like Will White, like he didn't like, and myself, like I'm nowhere near his level, but I didn't even think about. I've never even sent a query letter. Like I know how to do them, but like I never wanted, because if you get into Will White's position, why would you go traditional after that? Like he's making he's making money hand over fist and stuff. But
I think the
one thing
biggest thing I learned is how quick you can turn a book around. Because if you're with a traditional publisher, when you turn in your first draft, it's at least another year before that book's actually in your reader's hands. And some of these guys were doing it, and like within 2 months, it's in the reader's hands. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a traditionally published guy, and he was like, "Yeah, from my sending it to them finished, he goes, it took them 3.5 years to get it to the shelf."
Yikes.
And it's like, oh my, like, unless you're Brandon Sanderson, where they just trust him. They're like, all right, it's gold. We'll just slap a cover together. We'll get the best cover guy. We'll slap a cover and you're good to go, But a lot of people, it just takes, it takes forever. Now, I know you're hardcore into Red Rising now. So has Red Rising caught up to Dune for you?
No, I don't think it's possible for that to happen. And I think even Pierce Brown would agree with me on that one. Dune's just like its own thing. Like I get a lot of people is Sun Eater like Dune, and I'm like, I mean, if you're looking for some of those things, you can see that Christopher's like influenced by Dune, but with Dune, it's more about just, I don't know. It's like if they ever made like a amazing Star Wars movie. I know it's funny, but just go with me here. They made an amazing Star Wars movie, no matter how amazing as it is. Would it ever touch those originals for you that you've just come to love so much? I doubt it. It's just, so I am one of those who can look at nostalgia and say, yeah, it's nostalgia. And I can look at it and say, maybe it's not the same as it used to be when I was younger or whatever. But then there are some things I'm like, no, that's still really damn good. And it's just going to be impossible for anyone to knock it off that mountain. So Dune is just so many like things that I put into my life as a young, impressionable teenager that will never be able to be topped. But I'll say that I like the characters in Red Rising better than some of the characters in Dune.
Yeah. I actually just finished Dune, a few days ago for the first time, and because I'm starting to try to get some more sci-fi into the mix here. So I read Hyperion and then Dune, and I could see how Hyperion was influenced by Dune and how Star Wars was like. I can definitely understand like that's why it's considered like the legendary sci-fi book that it is, because everybody has picked what they wanted to be out of Dune.
Did you like Hyperion?
Yeah, I liked Hyperion. It wasn't for me. I wouldn't put it towards the top of my list.
Right.
I think a lot of it is like the first half was amazing. I gave I don't do star ratings on my books, but if I was like the first half was a 5-star, and then I don't know, as everybody started telling their own story, like I was like less interested in it, I guess. But I will say I liked Dune better. I'm actually interested. I think I might even like the next Dune better because, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me if you've went through them. Is like, does the next book does it follow the characters more? Is it more of a character-driven story than a world-driven story?
Sort of. It's just the reason that the sequels are kind of hit or miss for people is when they realize that it's not a story about Paul. It's a story about Arrakis and other things. I'll just put it that way. So people went into it thinking, okay, I'm going to follow this one protagonist the entire series, and it's not quite how it goes. So it's Messiah is always going to be. I always tell people if you commit to it, read Messiah and Children of Dune together, because I feel like they are really one book, or Messiah is kind of a bridge book. So if you read Messiah, it's part 3.
Okay.
If you read Messiah just as the sequel to Dune, you're going to be disappointed.
Well, and I think, because I think I'd heard you said that once before, and I think, because Messiah is like a tiny book, right?
Yeah.
So I might try that strategy and just go right back to back with them and see how I kind of feel about it.
But I know it's hard to tell people, hey, here, read this 1,000-page book. So.
Well, and that's the same thing too. And I've been guilty. I've been guilty of it with Dresden, where I'm just like, hey, you just got to get to book 3. Get through book 3. God.
With Malazan fans. Oh, wait till you get to book 6. 6?
Yeah, and that is my issue. I'm just like, I can accept like a cradle book where you're and I hate to be the guy that's like, just get through book whatever. If you didn't like book 1, you just keep going. But like with Malazan, you're you're telling me I got to go through 6,000 pages before I'm going to be hooked?
Before you're going to be happy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a big one. So I never feel bad at telling people, hey, just get to Golden Sun, and then I think you'll love Red Rising. So I don't feel bad telling them, hey, read 400 pages before I think that you're really going to love it, as opposed to 6,000 pages.
Oh my gosh. So have you seen the new Mission Impossible yet? I know you were talking about it.
Haven't. My kid just got interested in the movies, and we wanted to watch them all before we see the new one. And I don't think we're gonna get caught up before it's is out of theaters probably, because he can't stop playing video games long enough. But it's fine. It's fine. It's his summer. I want him to do what he wants to do in summer vacation. But we just watched 3, but he has been watching to watch part 4 here really soon. But he's liking them. What he said was, it's like, I don't always understand the plots, but the action scenes are amazing. I'm like, yeah, that's not wrong. Yes.
Well, my son, we got we were rewatching the John Wick movies for John Wick 4 to come out. And so he was watching them with us, and he's like, "Oh, this is the coolest thing ever," because he likes Call of Duty and Army and shooting up and stuff. And so when we finished that, I was like, you know what? I was like, he would probably like the Daniel Craig's James Bond, because he's more like rugged and kind of like that. So we're through the 3rd. We just finished Skyfall. And I was thinking about starting Mission Impossible with him, because I think he'll like the spy stuff and all the action scenes.
Yeah, the first 2 movies, the plots were like, I'd be like, dude, don't be upset. I've seen these movies a dozen times, and I don't understand the plots of the first couple movies. So I was like, just roll with the action in the first couple, and I think 3 is where it starts to really have like an ongoing arc, and it gets better and better and better. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I don't know how old your son is. My son's 9, so he's going to be 10 this year. So we're kind of getting to that thing where I can watch, we can watch some action movies, some 80s action movies together and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm a bad parent that lets him watch Terminator. When he
that's right.
That's 9. Right. So.
Oh man, I love that, man. But yeah, so I know you were got the kids with you and stuff, so I don't want to take you away from them for too long on the weekend. Appreciate you jumping on the stream here with me and everything. What do you got coming up? And like nobody knows how to find you, but what do you got going on here?
I've got a video I'm making. I was supposed to record it yesterday, but you start sitting on that sofa and just scrolling through YouTube, and you forget that you have to make stuff to put on YouTube. I have a video for that. Came up with an idea in the live stream. Someone said, you've done like your favorite endings, you've done like your favorite book 1. Have you ever think about doing like your favorite book 2? Because it's like with a trilogy, you always have like that middle book syndrome, and then in a series, it seems like a lot of people will say book 1's okay, but book 2 is what really took off. So I said, I think I can do that. So I'm going to be talking about my favorite book 2s in a series or trilogy here. I think that's the one I got going this week. And also, seems kind of a weird video to talk about, but so many people ask me about collector's editions or stuff like that. I mean, even though I've done a book tours, shelf tour or whatever, people still want to see specific books. So I think someone asked me in the live stream, what are your 10 sexiest books? I'm like, well, I don't know. I have to think about that. So I think I'm going to make a video about that and show those books off, because people do love some nice, handsome books. And I've been blessed and lucky to get my hands on a lot of these. So that's probably about it.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch that. Yeah, I'm one of those people, like, I love seeing the Folio Society and
there might be some folios on there. Yeah.
Yeah, all the Dresden books are all autographed. Like, yeah, I love collector's editions, leather bound stuff. Anything like that. I think I don't know if I know I've seen some booktubers that have it. Do you have the special edition, the Dune that's blue and everything? Yes. Yeah, I think that's and people talk about how Dune's the biggest selling book of all time. It might just because they have some of the best covers, and every time that comes out, you have to go buy it.
And if you're a Dune fan like me, you have to have like 7 or 8 different editions of Dune. So that's me. All
right. Well, thank you again for jumping on here and just BSing with me for an hour. But
my pleasure.
Can't wait to see what you have coming up here soon, and maybe one day the Bengals and the Texans will meet again in the playoffs.
Well, I think they're playing this year, but I'm pretty sure your quarterback's going to be a little more ready than mine. So I'm feeling pretty good about your chances in Cincinnati this year. So we'll
Who
talk
dey?
next night. Yeah.
Joe Shiesty up.
I love Joe Burrow. I think he's a maniac. I think he's probably the best QB in the league right now. So yeah, without a doubt.
Oh, that is a high point to end the video on. Joe Burrow's number one.
Yeah, he is. All right. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Everyone, have a great day.